Hi, everybody. I'm Amy, and I'm here today to go over a wood disc painting with you. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that we can paint on wood today. What I have in front of me is several different colors of paint. If you were able to pick up the kit, you'll have several different colors yourself. I have a paintbrush, some water, I have some paper towels just in case I need them. And then I have my wood discs that are these small little wood pieces. And I have a piece of paper. You could use newspaper underneath them. And then I have a paint palette also, but if you don't have a paint palette, you could use a paper plate or some cardboard. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll show you some different ways to find patterns. And I'm going to start with a small brush. And let's see, I think actually I'll start with a medium brush, and we will do painting one of our wood slices a solid color. And since it's fall, I think I'm going to use some orange. And I want to start with painting one of the pieces of wood solid because I want this to dry while we're doing this project and learning other ways to paint it. Okay. So you can choose any color for your solid one that you would like. And feel free to incorporate different patterns than what you see me do today. I'm just going to give you some samples so that you have some ideas of how you can paint your wood. So a solid color on one of them, and we'll get that going so it'll dry. This could be like an animal shape or like an animal shade of color, like say a bear. Or for instance, I'm thinking I might turn mine into a jack-o'-lantern. Whatever you think, whatever color you want your solid piece to be, that is totally fine. We'll pick like a lighter color just so that we can go over it. All right, so I've added solid color to one disc, and I'm just going to set that aside to dry. Okay, so that's the first step. But I really want to get into finding patterns in nature. And if you notice, these wood discs have a lot of really nice natural rings in them. Okay, so one thing that we can do that's very simple is grab our brush and grab maybe a darker color. I'm going to grab a navy blue. You can use any color that you want, but maybe a darker color. I'm going to start towards the center of this wood disc, and I'm really going to go along with the natural rings that are there. So in the center, you see a little dot. So I'm going to just go right over that with my blue. And then my next outline will be of the first ring that's in the center. And then I'm going to continue highlighting these rings so we can find some natural patterns in the wood. All right. So while we're working on highlighting each ring, let's go ahead and start thinking about a nice second color that we want to use. We don't want the colors to be too similar or else they'll just blend together. So maybe I want a contrasting color like a white or a yellow, something brighter than this dark blue. So just be thinking about what color you might want to use next while you're tracing these rings.
And we've got somebody joining us.
Awesome. And then, so for the person that's joining in now, I'll just go ahead and go over real quick what we're starting with, which is we've painted one of our wood discs a solid color. You can choose any color that you want, maybe a lighter color, just so that we can add a pattern to it later. And then we are starting with finding the natural pattern in the wood by highlighting the rings on one of our wooden discs. So I'm moving from the center outward with a darker color, and I'm just tracing these rings, which is kind of fun. It's kind of relaxing. You'll notice though, at the edge of the wood, the rings start getting really close together. So we don't have to do every single one of those if you aren't able to trace them because your paintbrush is a little too thick. So we'll just pick a few of those. So continuing on here. Towards the outside of the wood disc. And then we're also thinking of that secondary color that we want to use. And then as you trace these rings, they don't have to be perfect. They can be bumpy little lines. This is just for fun. So we're just trying to find some nice natural patterns in wood. And painting with nature objects, found objects, is a really cool and fun thing to do. So I'm hoping that this painting on wood discs will inspire you, that you can paint on other things too, like sticks and rocks. It's a really fun hobby. Okay, so I'm getting to the point where my rings are getting close together. So in that case, I'm not going to paint each ring anymore. I think I'm just going to paint like every other ring. And this one is so close together down here that this might be my last one. And I'm getting close to the edge. All right, so I'm gonna let this guy dry after I do these rings. And we'll be thinking about another color that we want to do with this one. All right, so set this one aside too. And then as we're going along here, you feel free to paint your wooden discs with different patterns if you'd like to, or maybe you want to see how these patterns turn out and then decide which patterns you want to do on your rings or on your wooden discs. I'm just going to show you several different ideas here. You don't necessarily have to paint it exactly how I'm painting it. You choose your own colors, and if you want to get different patterns, that's fine too. Okay, so the next thing that I want to go over is similar to this ring pattern. I want to use the rings because they're here, and why not use them as a little guide for our painting? But I also want to mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to start with some green. Again, you choose whichever color you want. And instead of painting the center, I'm going to go out a few rings and find a new circle here. Okay, so something like that. And then I'm going to go out a few more rings, and I'm going to stick with this circular pattern. So I'm going to just go ahead and make some smaller circles within the ring. Okay. And then maybe I try a different pattern, go out a few more rings, and try adding just some small lines or dots within a ring. So see if you can see that better. So I started with filling in and then adding medium size, and now I'm going to do some smaller ones. So I'm working my way outward with a single color so far. Okay, so I'm just going right around this ring here. With a new pattern. And it's really fun to work on 3 of these at the same time because you can allow them to dry. So like this one that I started with, this orange guy is almost completely dry. And then the blue is now almost dry. So then I can add a pattern, let it dry, and work on another one while the first one is drying. Okay, so that's a good little tip. Working on a few things at one time helps you to go back and forth and not mix up your paint. And then we also want to rinse out our brush every time we change colors because we don't want to mix it all together. Okay, so let's go ahead and try something else. I'm gonna grab, let's see, I'm gonna grab some red. And I'm kind of saving white, and I think I have some black over here. I'm saving those for the end because those are kind of highlighting colors. The white highlights over any color that you have put on, and then a black or a white can highlight over a solid color. So I'm not gonna use white or black quite yet, but I'm going to save those for later. All right, so on this one, I'm going to try to divide this guy up and see if we can come up with something new. Okay, so first I'm going to draw a line in half with red. Again, you use whatever colors you feel like using. It's your art. And then I'm going to divide it again. And then again. So it's kind of turning into looking like a little bit of a pizza. And the reason that I'm doing this is I'm going to give myself some different areas to work in. Okay, so do that. Divide that once more. Okay, so now let's see. I think I'm going to leave some of these solid red, and then leave some of them just the natural wood and see if we can get a more complex pattern. Okay. So I'm going to paint every other one so that I have some solid and some natural wood here. And again, these are all ideas, guys. So you feel free to use your own colors and you feel free to use your own patterns on your wood. These are just ideas, things to think about, finding shapes in nature, using what you see in front of you. Okay. So this is almost like a pinwheel design here. All right, solid and natural. And when these red triangles dry, then we'll be able to add some patterns over them. But the idea with this one is we are going to try to get some contrast going. So you can make contrast by adding dark and light colors, or very complex patterns versus very simple patterns. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. And I'm going to grab, let's see, some yellow. So I don't really have to let this dry entirely because I'm not going to paint on top of the red, but I want to go in here with some yellow and start highlighting these rings that are left. So I'm going to pick some nice little places to highlight here. The ring patterns that are in between our red triangles here. And I know a lot of the kits have different colors in them. So you use maybe a dark and a light color that your kit has in it. All right, so I'm going to keep going with this. So this looks kind of cool. I'm going to highlight these rings in each of these. All right. So now I'm going to let this guy dry for a bit. I'm going to go back to the blue one and rinse out my brush. And as far as a contrasting color, I think what would look really nice with this one is actually white. So I'm going to use this to highlight some of these in-between spaces here. All right, so go right around in some of these spaces that are left. I think I'll leave a few of them blank as well. All right. Going right along the lines that we made before. Probably every other ring. Right, something like that. And then we're going to continue to do every other ring, working outward here. Might take a little more white paint or yellow paint than the darker colors. The darker colors are gonna appear more solid, and these lighter colors going to be more translucent, so they'll need a little bit more paint, a little thicker. Okay, around there. All right. So now we've added a second color to this blue one here. All right, so there's that pattern. I think I'll grab this orange guy now. Now, what would be really neat to do with a solid colored piece of wood would be to make an animal or a pumpkin, or you could even write some like a saying like your name or something like that. I think since it's fall time, maybe it would be cool if we drew a leaf on this guy. So I'm going to grab see. We'll grab some red. Just try to draw a nice fall leaf on the sky and not really thinking about the patterns of the ring here, or the ring patterns on the wood here. So these would also be really nice to do as little decorations for your room for fall time. You could paint each one with a different fall theme, like a leaf and a pumpkin. Let's see, let's add a few more. Just gonna paint a really simple red maple leaf on this. Nice fall theme. And then I'll go ahead and add a few more colors to that. Be a bit of yellow. And a bit of green. Right, so this is just one idea of ways to paint the wooden discs. And then it has a nice little frame with the outside bark. Okay, so that guy I would say is pretty done. Now let's move back over to this one. And let's go ahead and use, should we use more blue? Okay, I'm gonna add even more patterns on this guy. This is gonna be my very patterned piece of wood here. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back in with some of the same patterns, but a different color. Actually, we could do them complete opposite. So I used the small lines on the towards the outside. And this time I'll use the small lines towards the inside. And then we can do some bigger circles in here. This is almost like a mandala kind of drawing or painting, which is like a pattern that moves outward. And there's little patterns within it. So you sort of make rules. So I'm saying, okay, I'm going to use these small lines and they're going to be in between these green circles. And then I'm going to make larger blue circles that are in between these green circles. And then on the outside, maybe we'll do an even larger circle. So it all looks similar, like it goes together, but it's all slightly different. So that's kind of a fun thing to try. And really the patterns are completely endless on this kind of a thing. You could think of so many different ones: triangles, slanted lines, little dots, lots of fun options for this guy. And you can work sort of slowly on these and work back and forth and just continue to add to them until you feel like they're complete. So here's a nice blue. Right. And then towards the outside, we'll go with maybe even a bigger one, bigger circle, but maybe just a half circle. Sort of showing, yeah, we know that the pattern continues past our small canvas here. It makes your brain think about the pattern continuing. All right. Okay, so I've added some blue there. And then we can jump back over to these two.
Oh, I think your camera turned off. There we go.
That. Got it. Okay, sorry about that. I think it went to sleep or something. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some white and I'm going to add some pattern on top of this triangle now. So I'm going to go with some vertical lines. This white will stand out really nicely against the red here. Oops. Right, and then we can even create a center. We will create a little white center here. So really just adding on to these different patterns that we've created. And then real quick, I also want to chat about what we can do with these pieces of wood after we're done painting them. You could have a parent help you drill a hole in the top of them if you have someone that is handy in your life with woodworking and tools. I don't recommend that by yourself, but we could have a parent help us to drill a hole right at the top, and then we could string these guys with a piece of yarn or a piece of fishing line, and you could use them as a nice decoration. And then also, to protect your painting that you've done on wood, you can grab some school glue and you can mix it up with 1 part glue and 2 parts water, and you can create a Mod Podge type sealant, which is non-toxic. And as soon as your wood piece is dry, you would simply paint the glue water over and let that dry. And then that will give it, it'll be a little bit shiny and it will dry clear and it will protect your painting. So that's a nice little thing that you could do after. And then with this guy, we'll add 1 more color to this one. Maybe we'll use the pink since I haven't used that yet. And so you could choose to add the pink within here, or you could choose to add a pattern with the pink on the natural part. I think for me, I'm going to choose to add some lines on the white part. So I keep highlighting the same areas on this piece of wood, but I kind of like the contrast against the natural wood color. So I'm going to keep working on that. All right, and then I think it might be a good time to take any questions if there are any. If anybody needs any help